I really want people to know you can do these deals. Just start learning how to do them, joint venture with people in the beginning, and don't be afraid of a hairy deal. Don't get stopped, pivot. But some of them can be simple, like we go after the foreclosures too. And this is one, I was texting her all this kind of stuff, no response. Then I'm like, let me make this simple. The text that worked is you have to sign one piece of paper and you get money. That was what broke through. But that was an example how it's not super hard. It was persistence and then pivoting and changing up the text is what got that deal done.
What's the most amount of owners you've had on one deal?
Well, I just did a deal where we had 38 heirs and we ended up getting 36 of the heirs to sign.
Wow. How many times do you guys call someone until you say, I'm going to stop trying?
Depending on the deal, we don't stop.
Karl, you're here because as I got into this business, I caught wind of this dude who was doing some crazy deals up in North Carolina. And it just blew me away. And I was searching for resources to just learn and, build our network. And there weren't very many of them, but you were one of those early ones. And it's been really fun to do this business alongside you and find other counterparts in this. But our podcast is about distressed deals, problems, and how we make profit about it. And that's why, or how we make profit there. And that's why I invited you today, Karl. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
No doubt. Okay. But why don't you do this? Why don't you start out? I know a lot about you, but I know a lot of guests don't. And through this process, many times I actually learned. So why don't you tell me, who's Karl? How'd Karl get here?
Well, I owned a bunch of Subway sandwich shops, and I actually hated it. And a friend of mine, John Gatchell.
You were a sandwich artist?
I was one of the best sandwich artists. I was really, really good at that. So I was involved in that.
Wait, let me back up. How'd you get in the Subway sandwich business?
This is pretty cool. I was going to school at Appalachian State. The owner was financing the store to the manager, but he's falling behind on the payments. And the manager said, why don't you talk to the owner? He wants you to, he wants to sell it. So we went to him and he wanted $35,000 cash for the store. At the time, it was breaking even, losing money. So what we ended up doing is I went to my parents and I got a partner and he went to his parents. We tried to raise $35,000. Nobody would give us the money. We're like, this is done. And one day the manager walked out. The store was closed for 2 days. So I called the owner up and I said, hey, I want to buy this store. I can pay you $35,000, but I only got $1,000. He says, get in there, open up the damn store.
Was your sandwich shop a sub-2 deal?
Yeah. It wasn't a sub-2, it was owner financing. I didn't even know about owner financing. I just told him the explanation. Now, another problem, I didn't have $1,000. So I was a broke college student. So
I got $1,000. Wait, I don't even have $1,000.
So I got my partner to put in the $1,000. I put in the Volvo station wagon, and we owned a Subway. But the thing that turned it around for us is we called the college newspaper and said, can you do an article on us? We're 2 students that bought Subway. They did this big article in the Mountaineer, the Appalachian State newspaper, college paper, and then students just flocked to our store, and that helped save us. We would have gone out of business if it wasn't for that article. But because they did an article in the newspaper, that was one of the things that helped turn it around.
You did a PR piece. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was excited. And of course, the girl that came to the interview, we gave her a bunch of free sandwiches and things like that. But so that's how I got involved in Subways. And did that for a while.
Wow. Okay. So now from Subway to what's next?
Subway. Then my friend came and said, "Hey, you need to go see this guy, Ron LeGrand. He's teaching a lot of really cool stuff." So I went to all his events and started learning, and then I became a real estate investor.
Oh gosh, what did those deals look like, dude?
Oh, it took me almost a year to get my first deal. Running around, and I was actually MLS deal, triplex. I got traditional sale, and then my brother had good credit, so got him approved, and we bought the triplex. And then just went in. That's how I got it. It was a whole year of running around trying to figure it out. Not getting anything.
So what year would this be? You're talking Ron LeGrand was active on the circuit.
This is like 1999. I still have his cassette tapes from Paper Power from 1999.
Whoa! So
that's how I got involved. Then from there, I went to the meetups, and then just got into doing deals.
You had a very similar entry into the business that a lot of people do. They catch the bulk marketing, the
Mhm.
well-known personalities, and
Mhm.
they go in it. The interesting part is some people do flips, a lot of people don't do anything, and then you took this, other off ramp that took you to a different place.
Yep.
How when did the deal start to look different than the standard deal?
It took a little while, probably a year or 2 into it before I started doing some more of the creative, you know, Ron LeGrand type stuff, and then, getting a little bit into some of the little bit messy stuff, but not in depth. We were just buying on the MLS and things like that.
Were you making rent houses or flip houses?
Renting. We're taking and renting.
Okay.
Luckily, I had the income from my Subway store.
Oh, so the Subway stores are still going.
Yeah, still going, and then I eventually sold out of that. I don't ever recommend anybody own a Subway sandwich.
You pick these tough businesses, distressed real estate, curative title work, starting Subway stores.
Yeah.
Like you like the hard road.
I do. I'm very curious. One thing that makes us successful is being curious, and I love to learn. I love to figure out and do stuff that people say, like multiple of our deals, attorney said this can't be done. Then I'm beating Uncle Karl can do
Watch me.
anything.
Yeah.
Now some of those deals I shouldn't have done because I didn't make much money.
But you proved they could be done.
I proved they could be done. And sometimes you do these deals as something that you can repeat over
Right.
and over again. So it's not just that deal. It's like, let me work through this niche, this problem, because now I can run with this over and over again.
What I figure out. There are definitely deals that we wish we wouldn't have done too. Some that had smaller margins. We've lost money on some.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of deals that one of the several deals several years ago were like remarkably problematic. And we just had this idea we're going to go a certain direction. And it was definitely the wrong direction. But it's caused us to change some focuses. And actually, we improved a huge amount. So I believe that. I do. It's
Some
just
of
painful.
those doing those, and then sometimes the failures,
Yeah.
can result in learning stuff.
Don't do that again. Or if I'm going to do it, it needs to be like this
Yeah.
instead.
One other thing that's really helped us too is whenever we've been stopped when there's a problem. Like for example, we bought half this house one time, and it was going to sale, a foreclosure sale, and we kept trying to get the other half. Did everything we could, and we even offered the guy above retail for half,
Yeah.
but he was stubborn. So we're like, okay, we didn't make any money. But I was at a real estate meetup, and there's attorney Cameron Scott. So I was just talking about, I met him there, and I was talking about deals, and he says, well, you can get excess proceeds. I'm like, what the hell is excess proceeds? He goes, well, what was the overages with this deal? What, he explained that it was whatever amount of overages, we could get half of that. I'm like, well, how do we do this? He said, can you write me a check? Yeah. And so that sort of like failure, then talking to the attorney, we have this whole excess proceeds wing now that we do. And we just made 100,000 on one deal and 110 on another excess proceeds deal. But that came from us. The deal fell apart. There wasn't to it. Then talking to attorney, and he said, wait a minute, you can do this. Now we have this whole wing of excess proceeds.
You said something a few minutes ago that a prior guest said earlier this morning.
Mm.
I like to figure things out.
Yes.
The curiosity thing to me is almost as important as anything in this.
It's
and then the network.
It's one of the number one traits of entrepreneurs is being curious and then taking action and figuring out. But curiosity is like the number one trait.
And right outside of that, when you said, well, I talked to this attorney, the networking part, there are times where I didn't want to go to this. I didn't want to do that. And those are some of the times that I met the attorney that gives us the most support today, or a current business partner. Network is, God, I can't.
The meetups have been, I've gotten a lot of joint venture deals, learned a whole lot of different things. I learned about skip tracing at one of those meetups. I was just at this meetup, and this guy says, well, I'm skip tracing people. What is that? He goes, well, it's where we find a vacant house and we run it through a thing called Been Verified. I'm like, what's that? It's a skip trace program. Okay. And it was just that. And then that whole thing of being able to track people down came from a meetup. So again, attorneys, a lot of business partners, a lot of knowledge has come from the meetups and also masterminds.
Cool.
Yep. So that's a really big thing. Just going to these meetups, talking to people. There's deals, learn stuff, you get connections. I think that's a real important
It's free.
way.
It's easy.
Yep.
But it's a great return.
Yeah.
So the Subway stores were in North Carolina,
Yes.
and then the real estate investing was also in North Carolina.
Yes.
Okay. Is that where you're from?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes if people bounce around and
Yeah.
market really matters, laws are different across the states, and I didn't think it would matter as much, but the deeper you get into it, you learn it does. So, okay. So the whole time up there in North Carolina, okay, so we're going through the timeline, go to the Subway stores, go to Ron LeGrand, start doing a little bit of different deals.
Yeah.
You're figuring it out. And then what's next? You say, whoa, I like these. I just want to do these. I'm not going to do the other stuff.
What happened was, like, we went after property tax. That's like one of the best sources. And so it's like we just learned it along the way. So we were going after the property tax delinquents. And then the next thing was we found out that somebody was dead. We asked the attorney, what do we do? And said, well, you have to check for a state file. We checked for a state file. There's no state file. Then I said, what's next? He said, you have to go by the intestate laws. What are intestate laws? I didn't even know. And then they told the intestate laws. And then he said, well, you need to get a genealogist. I'm like, where do you find a genealogist? Just Google it. So, okay. So then we hired a genealogist, start building out the family trees. And then it was just us asking questions, being curious. Well, how do we do this? How do we put this together? And us sort of jumping in and learning it. And now I'd say we're the best people in North Carolina at working the property, the tax delinquents, and that we kept evolving through that.
There's so many things in that last part you just gave us, but the tax delinquents became something meaningful for us. When property is tax delinquent, it's abandoned, forgotten, people don't care about it. And because it's usually not occupied, they're willing to let it go, much more so than mortgage foreclosure.
Exactly. And then here's some other things too. Some of the people are in jail, they're in the hospital, they might have judgments, and some people forgot they owned it. I've had that happen.
You're dealing with the kind of people who don't usually handle business anyway, and you can't not handle property. It goes underwater. So when you deal with property that's underwater, you're probably dealing with a person who doesn't handle business well either.
Yeah, and you just run into a spectrum of issues, especially then we really love the dead people. Those are the best deals. And a lot of times, as you're building out these trees, people don't know their heirs, and they don't even know how to put it together. So we're also providing a service when we build this out with these 38 heirs and things like that. It's stuff that they can't do. So we're bringing them money. I feel like we're bringing them money on and solving problems that they don't know.
Call them pennies from heaven.
Yeah,
you ain't gonna get rich on this deal, but if you were gonna fix it on your own, it probably wouldn't happen. You probably wouldn't get any money. I can get you a little bit of money, better than nothing.
Yeah,
pennies from heaven.
Well, let me just give you an example. One we did the other day. So we like ones that are consistently behind, like 3 or more years. If they're not paying taxes consistently, there's a problem. So this is how.
And if it's 3 years, they ain't digging out of that hole. It's too deep.
It can get too deep. Exactly. So we're the first thing we do is we put we use bin verified. We use a lot of other skip traces, and it'll tell you the year and where the person died. So we put that in, and then we just build out a quick tree. Then we called the people, and I'll remember. I'm like, okay, well, tell us the situation. The whole thing is we want them to tell you the situation.
So let me ask you. Let me go backwards a couple steps.
Sure.
Like, this is fun. Our processes are so similar, as you know. So these leads are specifically coming from a tax delinquent role?
Yeah, they're the tax foreclosures and the tax delinquent. We pull those directly from the county.
Bingo. Perfect data. Best you're going to get.
Yep. And then we, after that, we look for ones that are consistently behind, and we also sort them by who's dead. We do some bulk skip tracing now.
Oh, okay.
So all the dead people come up, and then we start with the ones with the most equity. And we have really great virtual assistants that are trained to they do all the research, and typically 15 minutes worth of research.
So 15 minutes for a property, figured out as a go or no go.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we rank each one. each one has a rank from 1 to 5,
Oh,
depending equity, maybe the heirs, maybe
like quantity of owners, maybe. Like
yeah, the
equity, quantity of owners.
owners. We also check for value adds, like what's the zoning? Can we cut off some land? Can we subdivide it?
Okay.
And the likelihood, like if the people are living in the property, like you said, they're less likely. But if it's a absentee and it's vacant, then it comes higher on the list.
Yeah.
So we basically have our VAs rank them, and then they're taken on as cases.
So as a sniper, you're really honing on the hottest target. You're like Bin Laden, like the top of the best.
We're going after the top deals with the equity and then the problems.
Okay, so let me go. You mentioned when you call people and you started to explain that, but we went backwards. Tell me what that call looks like.
It depends. It's basically like we'll call them up and say, hey, like we're going through public records and it looks like this property at 123 Main Street was owned by your mom or whatever, and we noticed it was tax delinquent, and I'm just curious, what are your plans for the property? Are you wanting to keep this? Are you wanting to sell it?
Very non-threatening.
Yeah, or a lot of times we talk about options. Well, when they're the back taxes, we'll say, you may not be aware, but the county's put you on the tax foreclosure list, and I'm just curious if anybody has called to talk to you about your options. Our first thing is to see if we can help the people always. And we've helped a lot of people stay in their houses. And it just opens it up. So
basically, if you can work with me and it's an easy solve, I'll throw you a bone and you got it. No big deal. You don't need me. But if it ain't no easy solve and you ain't getting done on your own, then let's do this deal.
Then let's do that. So I'm like,
that's reasonable.
We talk about, say, have you called the county? Just
a lot of people wouldn't do that because they're so worried about losing a deal. If I lose the deal to them, I want the deal. Whoa. You don't have to have every deal. It's okay.
And well, first of all, I think it's the right thing to do. If you can help somebody stay in their house or there's a better option, I think that's important.
Do it.
And you get credibility because you're trying to help them.
I believe that too. You're not showing up like it's a cash offer. It's only good till 5 p.m. If you don't work with me, you're gonna like that's a shithead,
So we ask. So we start with the options.
Be a good dude.
It's like have you? A lot of people don't just have you called the county to make a payment plan. Can you borrow money from relatives? Do you have any 401k plans? We go through all these options.
Got it.
But the whole key is to find out what is the situation.
What's going on?
The whole thing is
there a place for Karl or not? And is this an easy solve? You can fix it on your own. So you almost have a decision tree. Oh, exactly. It's not an easy solve and you don't want to deal on your own? Okay, maybe it's going to be a Karl deal. Let's talk more down that line.
Yeah, and then we just ask them, well, can you tell us about the situation? How did this happen? Then they'll say, oh, I hate my sister, I hate my brother, or they'll tell you the whole story.
Do you normally get met with opposition there and like guardedness or?
Rarely.
Do you usually get a lot of
usually because we talk about options. We talk about, because we really are there. The first thing is to help and see what we can do. I mean, we do get pushback from some people, but a lot of times, can you tell us what happened? We say, and this is true, our company Legacy Link, we specialize in working with people in these situations. So then they open up, they give all the stuff, and our goal is to solve the problem for them.
I love that. Legacy Link? I never knew your company name.
Yeah, it's Legacy Link Properties.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. And we have a website that we send them to tell us about what we do. But I really think if you approach it for options and you approach to help first, that's because then you can get testimonials and it feels good when you help. Like real quick, there's one lady who cussed us out actually.
Yeah.
And then Belinda, she's one of our great acquisitions person, kept texting back. I apologize. I'm sorry. We really have ways, you want to get back on a phone call. So we got back on a phone call and then we set her up with a hard money lender to help fix the house up. Oh. And we helped her, get it into her own name. So we didn't make any money on that deal, but
good deed.
We were able to get that done, on that. So
wow, that's a really big move. That's nice and very helpful.
Yes, and again, if you can find out what's going on and solve the problem, then that's where you have the opportunity to make a lot of money, or you help somebody out maintain
You're
their
right.
stuff.
You know, when you get folks that are willing to play ball and it is the right move and all that, then it makes it easy. You know, you move forward and they're ready to go and everything is friendly. We've had one of the situations that I struggle with is you'll have like, I don't know, let's just say you have 5 owners,
Yeah.
maybe cousins, siblings, whatever. And 4 of them say, gosh, we've wanted to sell this property for years. And Johnny, who's our last sibling or whatever, hates us. He's mean. He's got psychiatric problems. He won't let us. And it's frustrating because you don't want to go into a deal that's adversarial by, you know, taking these shares and having to fight with this guy. But also it's a bummer because that guy is holding up the other 4 people's inheritance or some extra money that's theirs. He's holding that ransom just because he's a knothead.
Yep.
What do you do in that
That's
case?
a perfect example of when I was able 2122 Ablewood. Okay, I remember that. So we were asking them about the situation, and they're like, "Well, our sister Tracy lives there. She's really very difficult." And I'm like, "Look, here's the situation." I said, "Go talk to Tracy. Make a deal with Tracy. If you guys can get on the same page, I can pay you a lot more." And I said, I remember this. I said, don't even call me for 2 weeks. I don't even hear from you. I said, whatever it takes, go make that deal with Tracy. I don't care if you have to pay her more. I don't care what you got to do because I can pay you a lot more. Well, they went to Tracy, couldn't get anywhere with Tracy. So then they came back to me. So that's 2 things. I would rather pay them more
and be clean
than that. Then I explained all the different things we had to do and everything. And so we ended up buying out all the shares except for Tracy, and it was behind on taxes. And then we kept making outreach after outreach, trying to work with her, and she went down with the ship. So the property went for sale at the tax sale. So we were able to, we got a check for $141,000 on that deal, and I think we made about $100,000 to $110,000 profit because we end up with 90%. So we were able to get
proceeds
excess
were split,
proceeds.
90 to you, 10 to Tracy.
10 to her, 10 to Tracy.
Okay, good. Wow.
So that's how we handle those situations. We really want the family to work together. We really want them to put it together because it's better for both of us, because that drug on an extra year. And then, you know, it's a lot of work to apply for the excess
Folks
proceeds.
coming into this type of workload or project type would almost rather, before they know what they're doing, they would almost rather have the adversarial situation because they can pay pennies for the 90%. But what they don't realize is a faster moving inventory and an easier to deal with group of people is much better for business.
Yes.
An average margin that's quick is way better than a big margin that takes forever and has a lot of fighting.
Yes. And then you're spending all your time, opportunity cost of moving on to the next deal.
Yeah.
And so that's what works real well for us, because they say, look, Karl, you tried to give us more money. You tried to do this.
They know you're being honest.
Yep.
They know you're not trying to be hard to deal with, but you are giving them up front. If it's clean and easy, I pay you more. If it's not, I pay you less. Is a business situation.
Yep.
And that, I believe, also adds to credibility, integrity, things like that.
Exactly.
So then they're like, okay, Karl's a good dude. Now, girl in the house, Tracy, ain't going to say Karl's a good dude. She's going to say he's horrible and call the news and all this bullshit. But Tracy usually is the bad actor, and the other 4 are kind of like collateral damage, so to speak.
I think there was like 12 we had to get.
Oh, wow.
But we get done.
What's the most amount of owners you've had on one deal?
Well, I just did a deal where we had 38 heirs, and we ended up getting 36 of the heirs to sign.
Wow.
And then, so this was, again,
2 holdouts.
Well, they weren't holdouts. We didn't want, but well, let me start from the beginning. So we found it on the tax delinquent list. We knew it was a big parcel of land in a great area. So we spend money ahead of time. So we built out the family tree, or most of it, and we're like, okay, this is a good target because we got multiple heirs. It's consistently behind. So we ended up getting 36 over time. It took us a while, but we didn't want to get the last 2. One was a ward of the state, and one had a guardian ad litem appointed. So we ended up doing on that one is we ended up getting that. Then we did a partition sale. And then, you know, after that got done, our net was somewhere around $270,000 on that deal.
Whoa. So in this case, you had just under 40 owners. You purchased all but 2 of them, and you had to do a partition sale. And this took a couple years to do. And once it was resolved, how much did you make on that one?
I think it was right around $270,000 approximately.
Whoa. Dude, so this brings to light a topic that I haven't talked about much yet on the show, the money. You know, when we first started doing this, my first deals I'd buy for $5,000 and sell for 25. That's a 4 or 5 times return. I'm happier than a pig and shit. But when you hit I'll never forget our first 6-figure deal. It included a specific performance lawsuit, which I hated, but it was $100,000 net.
Yeah.
Now you're over here talking about like $300,000.
Yeah.
And what was your spend on that deal?
Oh, I should know, but I don't know how much money I put into it.
Could you guess?
I think it's around 75,000.
So less than $100,000 to walk away with almost 300.
And what's great about it is the heirs could have never put it together. They would have never gotten anything. So they got money.
Would have gone to the tax sale, and they would have not gotten excess proceeds either.
Oh, because it would have been a nightmare to put that together to get the excess proceeds.
Right. These are tough because the hurdle to get deals like this done is so high, and the average person doesn't have the experience, the wherewithal, the care, the resources, and most of the stuff goes to the tax sale. We show up right before the tax sale, and while I admit we don't pay the highest dollar amount for property, we still get money in their pocket, solve it, pay the taxes, and we make some money. So I still really believe it's a better answer when we get there, but there's still some people like Tracy who raise her flag and say they're monsters.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
So Karl, on that last deal, you had minors involved, 30 owners, a partition sale, and you made $200,000. Let me ask you this. What's the most profitable deal you've ever done?
That one, and we just finished up another deal.
How big was that?
That one we netted, I haven't fit all the numbers, about $270,000 to $275,000.
That's a big.
And let me tell you how it started. Okay.
What did you spend on that one, roughly?
We were in $13,000.
You were in $13,000 and profited $300?
Profit about $275,000.
That's a home run.
It always starts out property tax delinquent, going to sale. Okay. And the reason we target this one is we always look at the value add. What I mean is we knew that these were a value add is like, can we subdivide it? What's the zoning?
Okay.
We put it through this checklist. This is part of the process. And I'll show you, there's another one too. I want to talk about Rowan, which was the value add, but we knew that we could subdivide the lots, right?
So you've already figured out the zoning laws, the subdivision laws, and the land use in these areas. Otherwise, this would not even be on your radar.
Yeah, it's
how did you figure those parts out? Because people watching are going to say, I'm learning how to do these messy deals, but how do I know about that?
You've got to have good people and experts. So we've got one of the best surveyors, and then a lot of it we've just learned. We know the zoning. We know that we could how we could carve it up. So it's having good surveyors and just good people that you can landscape or architect, people you can reach out to. But most of this stuff, you can learn the basics of the zonings. You can learn the very basics of subdividing in 3 or 4 hours.
So
it's not
the
real
professional
hard.
services, that's where a lot of our information comes from. We spend the time Googling, but the professional services plug so much that they've spent 20 years to learn, and we get the juice off of that in an hour or two conversation.
Exactly. And so this deal, it was 2 pieces of property, and we first bought. So what happened was, so we went through, it's consistently behind, the owner's dead. So then we have our genealogist build out the tree. One person's in Jamaica, and then we got to, and then we're talking to them. We also, another thing we do is we also run judgments. I would say
judgment and lien search on the owners.
On the owners and the heirs. Okay. So that's one of the things, we can do that in about 2 minutes now.
Now, why would you do that?
Because any of those judgments attached to the properties.
Bingo.
So,
and you know, a problem when you send a property through title and it's got a deceased owner on it, they'll send you a title commitment back and want you to just do a probate or an affidavit of heirship for that deceased person. Then you do it, and send it in. And now they're sending this title commitment back with all of the other owners, heirs in title and all these judgments and liens. And you're like, we're closing in 4 days. What the F?
Yeah. So we have a title guy. So we'll run title. We actually can do it ourselves.
Okay.
So we did the judgment search, and we're like, okay, there's $100,000 hospital judgment. And so a lot of it's like, I call setting the table when you talk to the heirs. So we call them up, say, hey, there's a property that was owned by your dad. It's consistently behind on taxes. He had $100,000 judgment against him.
You're framing this so well.
Yeah, I'm saying this is the situation. We would like to buy it, plus there was never probate opened, so we have, it's telling them all the issues and stuff, because a lot of times people think they got gold when you say you're an heir to property. So it's setting the table, explaining it to them. So after that, we end up negotiating to buy one of the pieces of property for $5,500 and the other for $5,500, because we had to deal with the judgments. And there's also a post-construction buffer that ran through it in a stream. So there are a lot of other issues that we told them about. And we said, we'll take care of all the taxes. We're going to buy it without title insurance, all this stuff. So we bought both those for $5,500. We paid the taxes off. Okay. Then after that, so we own the properties. We waited out the judgments. Judgments typically, now it's different in each state. Judgments are typically good for 10 years, and then they expire. They can be renewed. But because we put it into a land trust, if the hospital is to renew it, it would only renew against the person, not the property. So that's another key thing for people to know, is that they can renew these judgments, but a lot of times, depending on who it is,
they don't.
Yes.
But sometimes when they do, if ownership is changed, it's less of a problem. Some of the big national title companies will title search and say, hold on a minute, this is still attached and it wasn't released. We want you to release it before we'll insure this property. But many other times they don't at all.
Yeah, we had no trouble getting title insurance on that, because the judgment expired, or if they renew it, we just say, hey, look, it's against the person, not the property.
It's nearly impossible for a creditor to figure that out and then try to collect. But once a property's sold, these kind of judgments and liens aren't valuable enough to spend $250,000 in collection litigation. So it's not worth it. They don't do it. And it just kind of like dies on the vine, that debt. Plus it's 10 years old. A lot happens in 10 years. They don't care anymore.
Yeah. So this hospital just let it go. So we did take a little bit of a risk. So once it expired, then this is really funny too, because the new UDO was coming out, which is the new UDO is the new zoning codes, right? Yeah. So they were coming out, and we knew we needed to subdivide it. And then our surveyor calls up and says, for some reason, he says, you guys have by 5 o'clock today to subdivide this, or you're not going to be able to subdivide these into that lots.
Oh, wow. The effective date on the new zoning code was that day.
Yeah. Well, this was further along. We just forgot about it, or whatever happened. So we're like, holy, so we get Denia and Andrea and everybody. We call them in, and we're like, we're making deeds, and we're getting notarized, and we're putting them through and recording them automatically. We got done at 5 o'clock that day, recording the last deeds. We got it subdivided just in time, where we would have lost a lot of money. So,
wow.
And we use some legal loopholes too on subdividing that we've learned.
Like what?
Well, there's these things called lots of record. So if
that means it wasn't properly subdivided, so it's basically doesn't conform to the current zoning laws, but it's still a lot description.
Yeah. So like this one piece, we were able to put it into let
me clarify this for people listening. Like if the zoning code might say a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet, but this lot was created in the 30s and it's only 4,000 square feet, it doesn't conform. So it'd be a lot of record, but it's kind of like an illegal. You can't build on it.
Because of property laws, you can put them back, and so you got to look in your different area and check that out. But we could only do that until this date, because that things were changing. So we had to put them back to lots of record, and there's some other stuff that I probably shouldn't go into. But anyways, so we got that done just in time. So we're sitting here going, okay, great, got this done.
So how much would be the difference of the value add if that time had passed and you couldn't do the land subdivision? What would be your difference in profit with or without that?
I'm guessing, because we ended up selling for $350,000. I think we could only sold them for about $150,000 to $200,000.
Dude, you'd have lost 150, 200 grand on
Yeah,
the table because
if
of that.
if we did that.
Wow, that's significant.
So we got that done. Now remember, we bought this title insurance, right? So we were getting ready to go to closing, and we changed this. The day of closing, they're like, "Oh, we have a title problem from 1999." So long story is, and if I would have looked at this when we first bought it in 2020, I would have caught it. Husband's on the deed, the wife isn't, right? So when
Are y'all community property state?
I think, what do you mean? Like
community property, like when people are married and they divorce, their property is community property.
Yes.
So one inherits the other.
Yeah, well, it depends on the way it's entitled, but
Okay.
yeah. So what happened when the husband died, the wife wasn't on deed, right? So she gets 1/3, and then he had kids from previous marriage, gets 2/3 of it. The attorney messed up. And so, long story, I was already counting the money. I was like, I got it spent. But long story is then we had to file a quiet title, adverse possession.
Oh God.
And then some of the heirs came back. We had to settle. So here,
basically what you mean by settling is you had to give up some money.
we gave up money just to get it done. We would have won eventually, but we decided to go ahead and pay them out.
You know, that's something that a lot of people don't understand. They think if they're inexperienced in the judicial system or settlements, they just think, I'm right, I'm going to fight it, I'm going to win. Their pride and ego get in the way, and they forget about the business decisions.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's cheaper to give these people $5,000 than spend $15,000 in the next 24 months fighting them to win. Give them a little bit of money. It's probably not a bad idea anyway, and let's all go home sooner, more profitably, and happier.
Yeah, because
Now there are times where principle does get in the way, or there are times where it doesn't make sense, so you can't. But
Yep.
a lot more times it can be. I think people should be aware of that.
and yeah, so we ended up doing the deal, then closing it out, and the net was somewhere. I got to go back somewhere to 270, 275. We had initial $13,000 investment. Now, what helped was we were buying an area that was going up in value, so a fair amount of that was appreciation. That really helped us too. So because we bought it in 2020, by the time we got it done and solved, it was like probably 2 or 3 weeks ago we got it done.
So that was a 4-year-long deal.
Yeah.
What would you say the average timeline for your deals are?
Our average is probably 1 year to 2 years.
Whoa, that's a long cash conversion cycle.
Yeah, it makes it challenging sometimes. We talked about this, and I admire that you guys have got it way down, but right
that was
now,
a big problem for us, actually.
And it's a big problem for us too, because it's cash intensive and you're getting paid 1, 2, and we got several deals going in 5 and 6 years.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super long. And when I look at a deal these days, if I can have small dollars in it and it's a potential for that long, I say, who cares? If it's $13,000, who cares? Do it. But when it's like some of the deals cost $100,000-$300,000 these days on bigger ones,
Yeah.
I don't want that sitting for 4, 5, 6 years. No way.
No, that gets tough.
Wow. So I bet a lot of listeners are thinking the average deal size is 100 grand, because a lot of these, when you talk about them, it's bigger dollars. What would you speculate your average deal size in terms of profit is?
I should know this, but it's probably around 60 or 70,000. We have some easier ones that are faster,
Easier,
quick,
cleaner.
and
That's
stuff.
that's what you pay your bills with.
Yeah. we have a fair amount of $50,000-$40,000 that are a little bit quicker and easy.
So
deals.
5-figure deals are very common.
Very common. We know probably about once a month we're going to have a 5-figure deal of $100,000 deal, and every about 3 to 5 months we're going to have a $200,000 deal.
Yeah, that's good. So it takes a while to get those going, but also that's a much longer cycle. So as you get into the business, you ask yourself, like for a new person, how do I pay my bills while I'm figuring this out?
I think part of
You're
it,
selling sandwiches, but the average person might not have Subway stores.
yeah. Well, I think part of it is to have some part of what you do that's quick and fast, or joint venture, whether it's with you or me. Bring us the deal because we have the expertise to get it done.
That makes sense.
And, just bring it to, like, I would say, especially in the beginning. And I ask these people bring me a deal. I ask what you done. They can't get it done. I said, help me figure this out. What is 100% of zero? Right?
Yeah.
But I'm having fun, but too.
Right.
So
you're helping them understand what the leverage does look like, because without a guy like you or me, that deal's dead.
Yep.
If we show up and get involved, pretty sure we can get it done, but without us, you got nothing. So what's that worth?
Yeah, and there's a lot of deals that are simpler, but I would say don't be afraid of those deals. If you can do your research, you can bring it to me or Logan or somebody else, and then you joint venture with them, and you don't have to worry. Get somebody with expertise and the cash to get it done.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of these deals. Don't be afraid of and especially in the beginning, till you get your resources built out. Bring them to people like us or even somebody else that can do these deals. And that's what I encourage people that don't get scared away because it sounds so hard. There's ways to do that. And some of the stuff is, let me tell you about this other deal that how easy it can be. Although this wasn't real easy.
Yeah, we started with like the hard complicated.
Yeah,
ones,
so everybody's like,
which is where we feel like we live.
Yeah, so some people are like, oh shit, I can't do. But you can. I really want people to know you can do these deals. Just start learning how to do them. Joint venture with people in the beginning, and don't be afraid of a hairy deal. But some of them can be simple. Like we go after foreclosures too. And this is one on Rushwind. So the first thing, mortgage foreclosure. These are some really good deals. The very first, and we like the ones that are older because that means there's equity. So the
good news about a mortgage foreclosure relative to tax foreclosure is very old ownership and usually no mortgage, so there's more equity. But a mortgage foreclosure has been sold with a title policy sometime in the last 30 years or less.
Yeah.
So the probability of the title being slightly cleaner goes up.
Exactly. So but the first thing we did is we took the owner's name, put it into been verified. I like using them, and it said the date and the county that she passed away in. So first of all, the people that aren't experienced that are just doing the normal stuff, they're calling and asking for the dead people, and they don't answer their phones, right?
Yeah.
So that's simple. Now we know that she's deceased. We look through the been verified, and it lists possible relatives. So there's and one of the persons, her name was Tanya, had lived there for like 15 or 20 years. So we're like, this has to be the daughter. So, but you can simply Google.
The been verified membership? That's the $20 or $30 monthly.
It's like $33 a month.
Okay. Anybody can go sign up. Doesn't need a license or anything. It's cheap and good
and pretty good. Yeah. So we were looking at her and been verified, and then so we pretty sure Tanya was the daughter, but we also pulled the obit. So the obituary, you can get an account with newspapers.com. You can just Google it. So we pulled the obituary and said Tanya's the daughter. So like, okay, this is great. Now another thing I did is I went and knocked on the door, and the tenant said that she was a friend of theirs and that she didn't want the house, bad memories, and she didn't want to have anything to do with it. So then we already has a lot of, then it comes up on the level.
You're one of the other people that go to the door. I always went to the door. As our team's grown, I'm doing more management than deal stuff. But many of our guys don't even want to go to the houses, go to the properties anymore. And there's so much information that they miss by not going to the door.
You get to see if it's vacant. You get information, and you can talk to the neighbors.
Yeah.
We don't do a tremendous amount of door knocking because we've gotten lazy, so we're on the phone a lot.
It can happen.
But back then, I'd do whatever it took. So
Yep.
So now we found out the daughter. So so basically that quick, there's one heir, one person. So it's pretty easy.
Dude, that's clean, simple.
Yeah. Well, it seems so. So we kept calling her, calling her, and calling her, and calling her, and calling her, and calling her.
You know what? Okay, sorry, I keep interrupting you all the time. I just think about all these conversations I have because we live in this world.
Yeah.
Someone in my office the other day, an administrative person, was saying, hey, I called some foreclosure the other day. I'm like, good for you. Well, I called them 3 or 4 times, but they didn't answer. Did you call their son? Did you call their husband? Did you call their neighbor? Did you call every single person that was anywhere close to connecting? They're like, well, no, that's a lot of calls. And I'm like, you're trying to pick up 40 G's on a Saturday.
Yeah.
You got to make a lot of calls.
You got to make a lot of calls, and you got to be.
How many times do you guys call someone until you say, I'm going to stop trying?
Depending on the deal, we don't stop.
There you go.
We don't stop. We keep calling, but we pivot.
Find somebody and figure it out.
Yeah. And so the whole key.
That's what I'm talking about.
Is when you get stopped, don't get stopped, pivot. So we're like, so we started texting her. And I was texting her all this kind of stuff. No response. Then I'm like, let me make this simple. The text that worked is you have to sign one piece of paper and you get money. that was what broke through, because you don't know what's going on in their mind. She might have been thinking, oh, it's my mom's house. Do I really have rights to it? Or I might have to
Someone
go.
gonna expose me, get me in trouble.
Yeah.
Who knows?
You don't know what's going on in their minds. So we had the different text. So like maybe she was thinking that she had to go through probate. She had to do all this stuff. And I've had people think they're like, how can I sign this? I don't own it, but you don't know what it was. So I just simpled it down. That was the deal. That got her to respond. So we met her, deed, paid her $750. That's all she wanted.
Bingo.
Got the deed. And we owned it.
So, okay, hold on. This is something we have to talk about
Yeah.
for a few minutes. I'm sorry I keep interrupting you.
Nope.
I paid her $750. That's all she wanted. A lot of people say there's no way you can buy property for $500 or $1,000. We do it all the time. Are you making the offer? Are they telling you what they want? What's that look like in a specific deal for $750?
A lot of it, I can't remember that, but a lot of it is just situational, like depending on how many heirs, whatever. I think if you set the table right, then you can make the offer, but sometimes we'll say, considering all these issues and problems, what do you think would be fair to sign this one piece of paper and walk away and we take on all the problems?
I like that. That's a good frame.
Yeah. And
You set the table well.
Set the table well, that, and see what they say,
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember on that deal what I think we told her. Said, look, we can meet you tomorrow. We can give you $750. She's like, okay, that sounds good.
Quick, it's easy. If these people were going for the big dollars, it would be complicated. It would take a long time. There'd be all these moving pieces. Simple, easy.
She didn't have to do probate. She didn't have to do anything, and she already told everybody she didn't want anything to do with it. So we bought it for $750, reinstated the mortgage. We had $7,500 all in, between everything.
Wow.
And the mortgage was only good for like 8 more years. So it's paid off now. The cash flow paid it off. And so we have no money invested in it, and it's worth $280,000.
Huge amount. What's that thing rent for right now?
You know what? My partner takes care of that. I haven't looked at that in years. I think it rents for $1,300 or $1,400, but
you get a huge amount of equity in that one. I always
it's free and clear now.
Well, it is, but I always challenge people when you're getting $1,300 a month. So let's call it 20 grand a year, a little less than that. Then you got to pay some taxes, you got to pay some insurance. You might net 10 grand. So you've got 20 years worth of cash flow is $200,000.
Yeah.
Do you keep it because it's free and clear, or do you sell it for 20 years worth of cash flow right now, or 30 years worth of cash flow?
Well, I have this with my old partner who retired, Mitch Young, and he's very conservative. And he said, we're just going to, pay it off. And we're just going to keep it because it's an area that's going up. So we're sort of riding the appreciation, because it might have been worth 130 at the time we got it. Now it's gone up to 280. So we want to ride the appreciation wave. But I hate having a free and clear house with no access to the capital.
The other thing is, if you take that, let's just call it 300 grand.
Yeah.
And that would allow you to do 5 or 6 other deals that cost 50 grand a piece or less. You turn them in 3 years, you make 50 to 100 grand a piece. You're talking about a couple $1 million worth of profit from that capital. So do you just leave it in cash flow it?
Well,
or do you take that money and reinvest?
I lost everything in 2008, right? So this is the real conservative part of the portfolio. Everything that Mitch and I have is either free and clear or will be free and clear in 5 years. So I keep that as the conservative.
That's allocated
stuff.
as your end of the world money. This is your moat. This is your, if all shit hits the fan, I can eat.
So that's
what, story.
but I would rather probably be able to borrow against it or something, use it collateral.
But he wouldn't want to borrow against it because that starts to reduce risk into the equation again.
Exactly. But that's okay. Yeah. That's a very conservative part of our portfolio.
Looks good on a balance sheet.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that was an example I want people to see of how it's not super hard. That deal was not super hard. It was persistence and then pivoting and changing up the text is what got that deal done. So that's an easy way if you're looking at foreclosures or tax delinquents, finding the dead people, and if they got 1 or 2 heirs, then it's going to be a much easier type deal.
Sure. Let me ask you, on the opposite side of this coin, have you ever lost money in one of these deals?
Yeah, we've quite a few deals. We've lost like $500 or something doing that. I lost 30,000 one time.
Yeah, that's a meaningful $500. That's cost of doing business, whatever.
Yeah.
30 grand is real. What happened on that $30,000 loss?
Oh my God. I was the biggest dumbass. Okay.
This
so
is user error.
this is like beyond a rookie mistake. So going after this tax delinquent, made a deal to buy the property. I went off the Zillow value. Okay. But it backed up to a highway, right? So backing up the highway, it's worth less, right?
Mhm.
I mean, don't ever go off just a Zillow value. Don't do that. So anyways, we end up getting it, buying it, and then listing it and reselling it. And then I lost 30 grand on that
If
deal.
you're usually buying down so far that you usually have large margins and you missed the mark so far that you didn't just break even, you actually lost, that was a big miss.
It was a big miss, you know? So it's like we have agents and other people that we can do a little bit of research. I just winged it and I'm like, okay, it's got a Zillow value. This is okay. Let's go. Stupid. That beyond, like, look, I do a lot of great things we do, but then we do some stupid shit. And
as things grow, you move fast and get lazy and make mistakes.
And that
we
was
never
a big
lost
mistake.
any money for many years.
Yeah.
And in the last couple of years, we bought a property that was actually cut in half. The front half was sold at a tax sale. Somebody else bought it. We bought the back half. We thought we bought the whole thing, and we just didn't do the rest of the research. We screwed up.
How
we
much
bought
you
that
lose?
half. Well, we got lucky. The neighbor or another person who owned the front part was willing to sell with us, and he wanted more than his share was worth. He knew he had us over a barrel. And we said, as long as you recover our dollars, we'll let you get the upside. So he actually made significant upside. We just broke even.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've had some where I've lost 30, 40, 50 grand before.
You're going to have that. And that's part of the business. So
in the early days, we were so conservative. We looked at every deal. We walked it. We did all the research. There was no shot. And it sounds crazy because people say, what do you mean this is risky? How do you not lose money? I don't look at that as risk. It's just a different kind of deal. But because we understand all these variables and we account for what each variable could do, to us, it's not risk. We just know we have information that others don't have.
Exactly.
But when you miss the mark, like any idiot can miss the mark on any deal, well, then you're going to lose money.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of different little things that like
what would you say is your worst mess up?
That was probably my worst mess up where we lost 30,000.
If you're running a business like this that can have all kinds of crazy unknowns, and the worst you've done is mess up and lose 30 grand on one, I think that's great, actually.
We're going to have 100,000 plus loss somewhere. I already told my partners.
You have one coming?
We're going to have a big loss. Be ready for it. You know, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's keep some money in case, you know.
That's wise. So you mentioned, I'm going to tell my partner, part of your timeline I didn't catch.
Okay.
When was it that you went to the Leroy Legrand?
That was 1999.
Oh, okay. Got it. I thought that was when
and then
so 25 years in this business, 26 years in the real estate business.
Well, I lost everything in 2008.
Okay. So restart in 08.
And then I spent like 6 or 7 years in the used car business.
Oh, I didn't know that about you.
That was a disaster.
Really?
Had a used
Were you selling used cars?
Yeah, selling them, financing them with the GPSs, and it was a nightmare.
Okay.
You know. And then
so where I was going with that is this run. It's been how many years in real estate?
I got back in 2016.
2016. Oh, right around the time of me then. 10 years.
Yeah, 2016. 100,000 in debt. Totally broke. It was a bad situation, but I started going around to some of the real estate meetups and ran into Mitch Young. We had done business before in the past and stuff. And we were talking. He says, I got this deal. It's a tax delinquent foreclosure. I can't find this guy anywhere. If you can find him, I'll give you half the deal. So I'm like, I'm on it. You know, I'm hungry. I'm, broke as hell, barely living, barely getting by. So, and this is when we had the used car dealership. So I Google this guy. His name is Lee Arthur Wells, right? And it comes up, there's a used car turnaround specialist, right? So I'm like, this is how crazy I was. So I called him up. So this is a piece of property that Mitch couldn't find the guy. So I find him. Then I call him up and said, yo, I've got a car dealership. We're barely making it, was true. And I see a used car turnaround specialist. Can you cut me a break and help me out? He says, sure. So he came up that weekend, helped us with the used car dealership. So this is crazy. I hired him just to get to know him. This is,
Dang,
so
you
he
went deep undercover.
deep under. So he comes up and then I call Mitch, said, that guy you can't find anywhere? He goes, yeah. I said, he's in my office. He is. So Mitch comes down, meets him, and we asked him, do you own any more property? He goes, no, I don't own any more property in Charlotte. So long story, we let him go back to Columbia, South Carolina. We don't talk about the property. He goes back there. And the next day I call him. I said, my partner, Mitch, he found that you still have a piece of property in Charlotte going to tax sale. And he was like, somebody just called me today and offered me $35,000. And I'm like, well, Lee Arthur, we'll match that. And you know us. I'll come down right now. So I call Mitch and I was like, hey, we got to get down there right now. And he goes, what? I said, just come here. He wants to, long story, Mitch comes, picks me up. We go down, we sign the contract for $35,000 to buy the property. And then Mitch pays the cat. The deal is he puts the money in and then, I go find the stuff. So we got it. We just cleaned it up a little bit and then we sold it and we made $58,000. So that was my first deal back. And that was sometimes you got to think out of the box and get a little crazy to get these deals done.
That's where you got that flavor. That's where you got your first taste of business in this way. Real estate.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. So that was your first deal. It was you partnering with a guy.
Yeah. That was my first deal back in 2016.
2016. Yeah. So 9 years ago. So what does your operation look like today?
We have about 13 people, half are overseas. We have a full-time closing coordinator, 2 full-time genealogists, and then we have researchers that do the research, cold callers, and then we've got 2 acquisitions, and I still do some of the acquisitions. So it's that's
a robust group of people.
Yeah.
So with that kind of labor and manpower, you should be able to turn some pretty decent numbers annually. If you were to guess, how many transactions do you think you roll through a year? Not how many deeds, but how many transactions, if you had to guess?
I should know, but I would say probably we do about 5 to 7 deals a month.
So 50 to 70, 80.
Yeah, I would say 60-ish per year.
That's great volume.
Yeah.
You've got good numbers per deal. You're not doing these $15,000 wholesale deals. So.
We do a few of those, but
you do them? Okay.
A few.
When you stumble across it and you say it makes sense, but I'm not going to spend my money, but I can flip it off, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we know, we've got these $100,000 deals, 200 some odd thousand, and we're working on one now that's going to be probably 700,000.
What are the people overseas? They do research. They don't do phone calls.
They do. Some of them do phone calls.
Okay.
A lot of them do the research. Like each acquisitions person has a full-time VA that helps put their notes in, helps keep them organized.
Oh, wow.
And communicate, so that they're with them.
So they're ripping on the phones and someone's note taking for them.
Yeah, someone will note take for them
and
just keeps them on track and holds them accountable.
And you're keeping all those notes in your CRM. So let's say your sales guy gets hit by a bus, someone can step right in and go right back to where they are.
Exactly.
Dude, that's smart. I like that.
And here's a cool thing that we've done now. Like we take on all these as cases. So we have an overview where we put the key to the deal. We say, Mrs. So-and-so and so-and-so is deceased. These are her 4 children. This is their percentage. And we even put it subdivided. So we have this whole overview. Yeah. So when the acquisitions person gets it, they can read the overview. They know the whole situation. And then they start on the call. Actually, we have cold callers who will filter all the numbers till we get in touch with the right people. But that way they know exactly what needs to be done. They know
great
the
organization. Now, is that you or Stas?
Oh, that's me. It's all me.
Like that.
Stas doesn't do anything. I'm kidding.
What CRM do y'all use?
We use Podio.
Okay. Yeah. We've had great luck. We've been using it for years.
Yep.
One of our guys uses a different one, but Podio is affordable and actually can be incredibly robust if you build it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the way we've got it's everything. Like even if the owners are deceased, we put it in red. All these little things that make it so much easier to operate. And then the heirs, we have a spreadsheet, the breakdown, who has what's percentage. So it just makes it real easy for them, for the acquisitions people to read over it, get that. And then, another thing that really is helping us is we have breakthrough sessions.
What is
Okay.
that?
So I'll meet, so everybody, they have their top 30 deals and they're all ranked. So I'll meet with them once a week and I'll have my genealogist or somebody else in there and we talk through the deal where they're stuck. And we break
It's
through.
like a strategy, like a war room kind of.
It's like a war room. Where you stuck? What do we need to do?
That's why you call it a breakthrough. You're trying to break them.
Break them through. And I'll give you a perfect example of one. Had this one lot tax delinquent. We knew we could subdivide into 2 lots. And so we've been working on it for a while. The lady's name was Marva Frazier. So we're skip tracing her. We call her in Texas. And then this lady, some lady in Texas named Marva Frazier is getting a bunch of calls. She's like, I wish you mofos would stop calling me.
Wrong Martha.
Yeah, wrong Martha. But so we're sitting there going, what can we do? And we're sitting all this stuff. So we're doing different searches. And then I was like, you know what? Let's skip trace every single place she lived and call every single landlord. Right?
Going deep.
Yeah, we went deep. So then we
At least you shouldn't have to hire her.
Yeah. So it's part of it is like when you're stuck, we knew this is a big deal, right? So it's a case. We're gonna go all out. So we're sitting there. So we skip traced every place, and one of the landlords said her name's not Marva Frazier, it's Marva Lott.
What?
Women get married, divorced.
You have told this once before.
I'll keep it clean, but women change their names. So now we're on the right path. So now we got Marva Lott. We put her in been verified. We go on her social media.
How long had you been searching for Frazier?
Marva, it was like 4 to 6 weeks where we were trying to figure it out, and we're like, why can't we find this person? Why can't we find her? And that was that was the first breakthrough was calling the landlords.
Yeah.
So we ended up after that. So we go on our Facebook page, no posts for 9 months. And then the last time, then there's all these posts. So we're looking at everybody she's talking to, and she's a lady named Dorcas Rouse is corresponding back with her. So we skip trace Dorcas Rouse. We called Dorcas. Dorcas tells us that Marva was her sister. She passed away 9 months ago, and they didn't even know she had property in North Carolina. Right. So then we tell them, look, there's a bunch of taxes, no probate open. It's going to sale in 2 weeks, and then we ended up getting on their phone with the lawyer. And long story is we went back and forth, and she agreed to sell us the property for $13,000. Now, again, this is found money.
Pennies from heaven.
And then
but there's a lawyer involved. People usually every time I talk to people, they say, you don't want to get a realtor or a lawyer involved because the price is going to go up.
It could have, but she had her lawyer. So we spoke to her lawyer and we told him, so look, your best bet is if you want to make all the money, pay all the taxes. Okay. Then if you pay, then once you pay all the taxes, you have to open the probates and then do an ancillary probate in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And you do all that, you can do that, but we'll pay the taxes right away. And, you'll get $13,000.
Pay you off in cash.
Yeah.
Quick.
But so we made the deal with them and we said, look, we can't pay you any of the money till we get done clearing the title, but we'll pay all the taxes off. So they deeded us the property, 2 sisters, no money, and we paid the taxes off.
So you got it subject to the existing debt and title problems, cleared all the problems, and then when you're going to pay these debts, paid the sellers too.
Yeah, we had North Carolina, if somebody's been passed away over 2 years, you don't have to open probate. So that's sort of like
the
affidavit heirship. So we had to wait till she was deceased 2 years, and then we did the affidavit heirship. We split the lot into 2 lots.
Got your value add.
The value add, and we sold it for like $175.
Nice. It sounds like you'll do a lot of those lots.
We do a lot of lots. We are really good. I could talk for hours about land and how we split stuff and we come up with that. So there's a lot of great tax delinquent land. And do you guys go after tax delinquent land?
We go over anything tax delinquent, but it's just funny. That should be like on a shirt, tax delinquent land. It's like,
yeah, because those are the best deals. They don't care about land as much as the houses.
Yep.
And so that deal was one that we took on. And so probably the net after everything was probably about 150, 160.
Wow, that's a good one.
And that's
Yeah.
because of the breakthrough.
So you didn't
think
you
outside
were
the box.
trading on your time and your resources and your experience. The dollars were very small and all paid at the end right before you flipped out of it.
Yeah.
That's a very efficient use of capital.
That one was. Some of ours aren't. But yeah, that was like, I mean, we just paid the taxes and then they got paid out later. But again, wasn't for us. They would have never known about it. It would have gone through foreclosure and they wouldn't have gotten anything. So that's another thing that I tell people, look, without us, you wouldn't have known about this. So this is, this is found money, and then here are the problems.
Yeah.
We even told them what they could do to make more money, and they're like, we don't have the money. We don't want to go through all that. So we were a good answer for them.
I read a study just recently where this researcher from one of the big universities in Texas, studied 3 large MSAs. It was Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, one other. And their research pointed to like 53% of the properties sold at tax sale were inherited properties. And, I guess a large part of what we do starts that way. And so I believe that. And I kind of thought something like that. But until I read that data, and it sounds like your environment is the same way. It's just like it up there.
We
and we have very similar laws. I was like is South Carolina laws just like North Carolina?
No, South Carolina is a tax lien state.
Oh, that's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah, so we don't even mess with that. We just
it's forever. There's no way to speed it up, really.
Yeah, we stay out of South Carolina for the most part.
Oh, okay.
But I really think like some people just go after tax delinquent houses, tax delinquent land. 70% of our business is tax delinquent land. It's huge,
Mm-hmm. So if you look at, when you step back and look at that property, I don't know that we would have chosen land over houses or whatever. We just go for what's delinquent, look for, like you said, value. We would rank it similarly and equity and all that. But when it's a vacant house, people will let go of it a lot easier.
Yep.
If it's land, they really don't have a use for it.
Yep.
Now, the one that I like to stay away from is homes occupied by an owner who's disinterested in selling.
Yes.
If there's 10 people that own a lot and it's vacant and none of them care, none of them are paying, one of them just a knothead, I'll still do that deal. I'll eventually get there with the last one. But if the person's living in the house, this is what really bothers me, actually. I'm not going to do anything about it, but many times the person that took over that house isn't because they were the nice sibling, the kind sibling, the one that helped the parents so much. It's usually not it. They muscled their way in, took over the house, won't pay taxes, won't keep it up, and won't let any of the other siblings or people use it or get to their equity. That's usually the worst person of the bunch that takes the house. But it's just not worth dealing with it. That's one of the ones where I'll say,
we'll deal with those.
Well, the one way I will do them is I'll buy it. If they're not paying taxes, I'll buy the interest and just let it continue as it is. It'll eventually get sold at the sheriff's sale and get some excess proceeds.
Yeah.
But I tell the people, look, you can wait for it to sell and you'll get your money. Or if you sell it to me, I make the difference in what it sells for and what I pay you. That's my profit for carrying this.
And we'll do partition sales sometimes in those circumstances.
Do you know if y'all have the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act in North Carolina?
We don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's another layer of a modification to the property statute, or the partition statute that just adds more time and complexity.
Okay.
So that means y'all are a little bit faster at it.
Yeah. And real quick about the land is, I think it's important to always look at the value adds. Okay. Like we talked about the zoning, the different stuff. And I'll give you one more example of a deal. We got this one lot that we bought for $62,000, 13 heirs. So, there's this one lot. So we looked at, there's another lot right next to it that if we bought that lot, then we have the corner. So, and I've got slides I can show people. So we bought this one for that one. And then we're looking at this other lot and we went down to the zoning and say, if we buy this other lot, can we slice it into 4 lots facing the other road? Right. And this is like, sometimes you don't have to know stuff.
This is a long, slender one facing one way. And you said, well, let's face it that way and chop it up.
Chop it up into 4. So the zoning said, oh yeah, you can do this. You can cut it into 4. So we paid $168. We paid full price for that lot.
Because you got 4 lots.
We got 4 lots and we made $160. It's on Campus Street. We made $166,000 on that deal. So it's these value adds. You're like, is your house, can you subdivide some land off? How many units can you put on? Can you buy some of the neighbor's land? And I'll tell you another one real quick. There's another lot we bought, and it's 60 foot of frontage you need, right? But this was 100 foot. So there's a lot next to it on both sides. So we're going to buy this because we got a good deal. We're going to try to buy the lots on either side. So we ended up trying to buy the lot on the left side. That guy was from New York. That tells you everything you need to know. No, I'm sure there's some nice New Yorkers, but anyways.
But I haven't met them.
We haven't met them yet. I'm just kidding. But so we couldn't get anywhere. And other people were building a house on it. They're like, oh man, because if we buy either lot and combine them, we have three lots.
Like a third.
Yeah. So we did some research and dug into the zoning codes, and we found out we could buy 20 feet by 30 feet from the neighbor.
Oh, just a little bit of the front, not even the whole thing.
Not even the whole thing.
Oh, so you got the frontage, even though the total width wasn't there.
Yes.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So we bought it. They knew we needed it. They charged us $20,000.
They got you, but how much did you lift your price by that?
We made about extra 50,000 ish. So we looked deep into these things. How can you carve up? How can you buy? We look at entitlements now, and let me tell you one more. I'm sorry.
Let me jump in here.
Okay.
People tell me, why don't you go nationwide? While we've done deals in all these different states, when you understand an area so well, you can do things differently. A person from a different state that was just doing some of this in your state wouldn't get so deep in it because they're flipping in 4 different jurisdictions and it's just different. You're an absolute specialist in that area, and that's why you increase 30 to 50% on so many deals.
Exactly.
I specifically remember when you visited us a long time ago. I think there was an event in town. I can't remember why.
But we all went to dinner. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were telling me about these subdivides, and I'm like, and I know our zoning laws. I've done some subdivisions, and I was like, where are they hiding these? I just dug, and I ended up learning that we don't have the same rules that y'all do. It's completely different. So I realized how different. This is before I'd ever looked at another state.
Yeah.
I realized how radically different the zoning rules and the MO is or can be across different jurisdictions.
But I think that's one thing that helps us. We try to specialize in everything.
Y'all focus in North Carolina. Do y'all do deals outside?
We do. Yeah, we do them everywhere. But we do some. We've done a couple in Texas.
But your home court is North Carolina. It's been for most of the time.
Yeah, we do majority there. We do some in Florida, and we're going to be doing more nationwide. And I'll tell you this last one real quick. It's like, so we put them through a value add. Dead people own this house. But there's one road on one side and one road on another side, and we realized we could subdivide 2 lots by going with lots of record. So that became a number 1. Dead people consistently buying taxes with a value add. That's the Uncle Carl trifecta. Dead person, vacant house, the value add, and I forget whatever. That's like, this is good.
That's it.
So we got it, and we were all in. Said 60,000, but we were all in for 40,000 because we took over some judgments and made them go. So we were all in for 40,000. We subdivided the 2 lots, sold those for 55 each, and sold the house for 112.
Dude.
So that's just like
212, 220 grand.
Yeah, and we were all in at 40. So it's like
150 margin.
150 margin.
If you were to guess, what would you say your typical sales prices roughly? Because I'm hearing a number frequently, and it's actually probably very close to. Is it about 200 grand?
It all depends on the property.
If you were to say like the last 100 deals, where would be like an average of your?
I don't know, 140 to 250.
Okay, then yours is okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I ran a report for the last 150 transactions we did, and the last time I ran this report, it was 194,000. Today, it's 205,000. And you hear us talk about outliers. We've done multi-million dollar deals.
Yeah.
We've done tons of $500,000 deals, but it turns out the median is like 205,000. And if you can buy something for 50 to 70 grand all in, you can make over 100 net.
Yeah.
You think about this when you compare it to other businesses. If you're going to do new construction with a 20% margin, you need to build a house that with the land and the construction costs 400 grand to sell it for a little over 5 to make 100 grand at 20% margin. If you're going to manufacture trailers at a 20 or 25% margin, you have to do so much more work. This is such an efficient use of capital, and it's a reasonably short amount of time when you step back. So it's incredible returns. They're hard to beat.
Yeah. But again, it's a lot of work, a lot of
It is,
effort, but the
you're-
returns
you're
are
only hitting a $200,000 price point sale. You can't do a house flip
Yep.
and make anything. A $200,000 house at a 20% margin, if you're lucky, you might make 30 grand, maybe a little less. Here, whole different ballgame on a $200,000 property.
And it's all about, again, listening, solving the problem. It's all about understanding the person's situation. That's so key to these deals. A lot of people, like, will make you the cash offer. No, you've got to find out what's going on. You got to solve the problem.
What they need to hear yet.
Yeah, because it might not be cash. It might not be that. You want to really dive deep into the issues, the problems, and solve them.
That's a much smarter approach.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we start our conversations, it's similar. I'm just trying to figure this stuff out and got a little info. What do you think? And we're not met with too much resistance. In the early days, I would get a mortgage foreclosure door or a mortgage foreclosure list and go knock on the doors. And man, I was young, a little more brash. I didn't understand people in this situation yet this way. So I would say, well, your house is going to get sold in, 17 days. You want to sell it to me? Like, that couldn't be the worst pitch in the world.
But you started, and then a lot of this stuff is
quick. Because everyone said, fuck off.
So a lot of this stuff too, people are like, I have to know everything. Just get started. Like your buddy Sterling that called me. He's like, well, the course doesn't start until whatever. I'm like, don't let that stop you. Start pulling the list. Look at it as just, you're going to mess this up. You're going to learn. Just get started and learn along the way. Do you need experts? Do you need that? Yeah, you start building that stuff. But you just, like when we first started knocking on doors, I had no idea what I was going to say. I was tripping over my words and all sorts of stuff. And, but slowly over time, it evolved. So don't think you have to know everything, all the answers. Perfection is the enemy for this business.
One of my favorite sayings is no one knows what they're doing. Some of us do it anyway. It couldn't be more true.
Yeah.
When we're dealing with folks that are just learning, getting into it, they want to hear a script and listen to lots of recorded calls. And I say, just listen to 2 or 3. After that, you need to get on the phone.
Exactly.
And if you can't figure it out doing that, this ain't the business.
Exactly.
It's interesting how many people do things so differently, but you and I probably share more commonalities in our business than I do with most other people. For some reason, it just works like that.
And that's why we're both having really good success overall, If
you were to look at the problems that you're solving, and maybe if you were to call it like a type of deal, like subdivide, a delinquent tax, what would be the top 3 or 4 common problems? I noticed the orphaned estates is kind of what we call them. That was one of the real top ones, the tax delinquent. What are the other big problems? I noticed you mentioned judgments and liens.
That's just probably 5% of the deals. The 10% will have judgments and liens. The most problems is like, somebody passed away with multiple heirs that aren't getting along. That's probably the top.
The feuding owners,
or then sometimes it could be judgments. Sometimes it could be they're in the hospital, they're in jail. They're, I'd say 1 out of 20 properties, somebody's in jail. So I've been to jail many a times, and not just the times I got arrested to get deeds. So, and
they go throwing notaries there in the jails too.
Exactly. And then, they could be moved in with their daughter. But I'd say most of the biggest things that people are deceased, and then there's multiple heirs. I would say that's the number one.
Ownership disputes.
Yeah. What was your question again? My ADD medicine's wearing down.
No, we were there. Basically, just what are the top problems that you're seeing? And it sounds a lot like ours.
Yeah.
Delinquent taxes, ownership disputes.
Trying to look at my list of there's a lot of unique, but that's the main ones. But there can be a lot of these unique type problems too.
There would be like a handful of random unique, I don't know, a deed came from out of this person's estate into the next person individually, not as an executor. So it's a bad deed 40 years ago, or I don't know. A
Yeah.
legal description is bad on an old deed, like all this random
Yes.
bullshit.
Yeah,
like,
we run into that before. We had a deal we're doing 2 days ago, and they couldn't figure out the deed problem, but we have a really good abstractor, and he went all the way back, and at some point, what had happened is they had just put a different address on the property, but it had the same legal description from the very, but it took him, and luckily we sent him a lot of work. He said it took him most of the day to figure that shit out.
so they
But now we got it
found where the
done.
legal description got changed in one deed, and then going forward, it was always that, and it was wrong.
Yeah.
All right, so case studies. Let's talk about some more case studies.
I love case studies because I think for me, I learn from them, and it's what it takes to get a deal done. And again, a lot of times people just go surface level. Going a little bit deeper and stuff. That's where the big deals are created.
Let's take this next one
Yeah.
from absolute start. Like,
Okay.
what time of the year was it? What kind of lead was it? Who called it? Like, just walk me all the way through it.
Okay. This one, I don't remember. It was a tax foreclosure coming up. It was, so we pull the list, we sort them, right? So we sorted it, was consistently behind for 6 years. And then we put the owners in, been verified, they were deceased. Then we built out the tree.
So this was highly ranked with all of your targets. Many owners, delinquent taxes, right locations.
Yeah. So we came up, scored really high on it. So VL, who's our acquisition, called them. And, the first thing is when she called them, she said,
Was she calling, picking a couple of them to focus on, or was your caller calling all of the people?
well, the way the tree was, so mother and father were dead. One brother was alive. So, he's 50%. Then there was a sister who died. Then her son died. And then there was another kid who had just turned 18 that we didn't have any information on. We always start out with like the
bigger shares.
The bigger shares, right? So it's discovery. So we called up, we asked them, we said, hey, property, noticed that it's going to go to tax sale, and we're just
So
curious.
this would be a tax foreclosure list, not delinquent tax. So in your state, you got about 3 weeks until the foreclosure sale?
No, probably about 6 months.
Oh, y'all get a lot earlier
It
notice.
depends. Yeah, there's a lot of notice when they put it on before they foreclose. It's a long period of time. So we're like, you notice that the property's going to sale, and I'm just curious, what's going on with the property. And the guy was very forthright. He said, look, we've taken it to 4 different attorneys. They said, my mom was on Medicare, and we've been getting calls trying to collect. Like, okay. So you're gathering information. And the main, I'm just like, what are you, we asked, well, what are your plans are? And he's like, well, we've pretty much given up. So he's going through all the problems. So he's going through each little problem. He's saying, look, we've been to multiple attorneys. They said they couldn't do anything. It's Medicare out there. Then my sister died, and then her son died, and then there's half brother and sister. So I said it's a big mess. So we're gathering data.
Like, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So we're just okay. Da 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 da. So
at this point, is this a cold caller or is this a higher level
this is
acquisitions
person?
Okay.
We want an acquisitions person to talk directly to them.
The cold caller might have made the calls in the beginning, but once they got the person, now that you bring them into a highly trained
person. And so VL's asking, so we're gathering all this information. So the first thing we do is we run judgments. Medicaid was trying to collect, but they never put a judgment against the property. Okay, so that's the first piece. So we call him back, and we're I can't believe I forgot his name, Charles. Okay, we called Charles back and said, let me go over the situation again. There's got all these issues and stuff. I said, it sounds like you've given up, like the Chris Boss or whoever.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, not totally, but pretty much. At that point, it's found money. He's tried everything. So we're like, what if we could give you $5,000 up front, and then we're going to pay you, I think, another $13,000 if we're able to clear the title. So we take on these, go to our website, look at Legacy Link. We take on these things, and he said, fine.
He's going to get 18 grand and he thought it was a lost cause. I'm going to look up Legacy Link. Keep going.
Yeah, Legacy Link Properties. So he says, fine. So we put it under contract. We give him $5,000 to get the deed. And this is sort of funny too. So again, if we can get half of it, when we run title, there's no Medicaid out there. They are trying to collect. So it's funny because I guess when I sat there, when we went to the closing and stuff and we're getting ready to sign the deed, he says, okay, I'll sell it to you on one condition. I'm like, well, sure. He says, just don't open a goat farm on there. Oh my God. He'd been in my social media. He looked about everything about me and that I'd open a goat farm to extort the town of TDK, positively extort the town of TDK. So it was sort of funny. But anyway, so we bought his half for $5,000. Now, then we got the tree built out, and there's this grandson who's 18, and all we knew was his name was Dane, right?
Dane.
And we couldn't find any social media. We couldn't track him down anywhere. Like, okay, this is where you got to get creative. So we knew he had a half sister. So we tracked down the half sister. We go on her Facebook page. She's selling a Michael Kors purse for $500.
So you're in the market for a Michael Kors purse.
Exactly. So I have
at least you didn't have to hire her.
So we had Erica, who's one of our breakthrough specialists. She's going back and forth, under my name. Said, oh, I'd really like to buy the purse for, as me, buy the purse for my girlfriend. So we set a meetup, so we meet at this Food Lion. We go in and I pay her $500, get the pink purse. And I said, hey, the reason I'm really,
by the way,
here is, your brother Dane, we're trying to get a hold of him because he's heirs to a house. She steps back like,
she's like, what the hell did you just do?
Yeah, like, who are you? Luckily, we're in Food Lion. You're not going to kill me. I mean, she was like, and then I said, look, you remember the house at 2700 Dillinger, right? She says, your Dane is an heir to it. I need to get a hold of him. He's your half brother.
And you've already paid her $500. So it's like, hey, if I was going to hurt you or kill you, I wouldn't have given you $500. Like, that gives a little bit of
credibility.
Yeah.
And I had all the sheets out. See, here's the family tree. Here's the situation. So I had all that laid out. And then she got a hold of Dane, and we gave him $5,000 up front and paid him some more money later too. So now we own 100%. There are no judgments that are going to attach, even though they're still trying to collect on the Medicaid. And then we have to get the affidavits and clear the title, which took a few more months. And then we just listed and sold it. We made $140,000.
Nice.
Now you would think that because the guy called me, Charles called me, and he says, wow, you made a great profit on it. I'm like, oh, he's going to be mad. He goes, well, congratulations. And he did a testimonial for me too.
Man, we've had some people do that kind of thing. They get mad, they're angry. And that I started to change in the early days when I was doing this. I started telling people, if you fix it, just like you said, literally, if you fix it, you're going to make a lot of money. This is how to fix it. If you want to do it on your own, I have no problem with it. But inherently, when they say, no, you do it, they also understand that now I'm going to be the one to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we've had people, like, we've chosen to not list stuff on MLS in the early days because it's in the same neighborhood where they live. We don't want to call.
Yeah.
And we've had people call back and get mad, but our pitch has changed over time. We also have a disclosure.
Okay.
That where they acknowledge that they're selling it for less than it could be worth if it had clear title for all these reasons.
That's a good idea.
People get sour. You didn't break any rules. You were up front, but
he was happy.
Sour.
He even said,
that's a curveball.
Yeah. He said, hey, I'm glad you made a lot of money on it. That's what he told me. He said, and he did a testimonial it's on Legacy Link Properties.
Wow.
He did a testimonial for us because he's like, he had given up.
That means you handled him well, or your team handled it well, because if you would have misstepped anyway and he just didn't quite like you, he wouldn't have taken it like that. He'd been so mad and angry and nasty.
And we've had a few people get mad when they find out you make a lot of money.
Right.
That's part of it. But that was really cool because it was like he would have never made anything off that. He would never gotten through all the deaths and all that kind of stuff. So it was really cool that he did a testimony on our website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Let's see. What other case studies you got? Hold on. Okay. You said some of the longest deals have been 5 to 6 years. What would be some of the shortest? Like, have you bought, cleared, and sold in a 30-day window?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we've done
shortest
that
is 30 days. Longest at this point is 5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years. We've had some 30-day deals and 60-day deals. We have maybe 10% of our deals are 90 days or less. So we have some quick stuff.
Okay.
And that's usually the land with very few problems.
You know, in the early days, I didn't have a lot of referrals, and I started talking on social media and building relationships. I'd get them, and I'll never forget. I started to get these calls where people would say, "I can't sell it through title. We'll sell it outside of that." And it'd be like a realtor and investor is trying to buy it. And when I would hear those things, to me, that means there are major problems. But I realized how uneducated or how simple the public is on these kind of problems, because I started to get people that said, well, the child who wants to sell it inherited it from their dad, and the title company needs the dad's death certificate, and the child can't get it, can't figure it out, or whatever. So they can't close through title, and they won't accept the affidavit of heirship. I'm like, that's all? So I would offer them 50% or less of the original price, close for cash in my office, and a title company or attorney can go request the death certificates. I would then just go get the death certificate for the next transaction, and it was over. And I started to find the referrals, 90% of them are trash. 10% of them are really good, and 10% of them are pretty damn easy. But you got to sort through the 90% that are like, some dude in my neighbor, this house is vacant at the end of my neighborhood. It's owed 10 grand in taxes, and no one's mowed the grass. Will you JV it with me? I'm like, have you talked to him? Do you know what's going on?
Yeah.
I was hoping you would do that. I'm like, dude, there are 100,000 shitty vacant houses in Texas. That's not where.
Exactly. But you know, we get a lot of joint ventures and referrals, and typically they're not super hard, but sometimes they can be. But those are some of our better deals, are referrals and joint ventures. That's what we get a lot of people, because people just don't know. They haven't investigated the laws. They're, and so if I look back 20 years ago or whatever, I probably wouldn't know how to do all this stuff. So it's just, they're just not educated, or they don't think outside the box. And so I get that,
If you're to go back and tell Karl in 1999 something that you could say now, what would you go back and tell yourself as it relates to business?
Well, first of all, don't buy for appreciation. I did up and lost everything in 2008.
Because
of debt. I just had a lot of hard money loans, buying in prime locations that were going up. I was riding the appreciation. And what else would I tell myself? It's just more like I've suffered from a lot of anxiety through the years, and just not to worry as much, not to, it's taken me a while to get to the point. It's like anxiety has cost me so much. Worried, self-limiting beliefs. I would say, just find a way not to worry, and just do. But on a financial thing, looking back, I would say try to hold it as many as you can, but make sure they're cash flowing, and then do some stuff for capital. But of course, looking back, everything went through the roof. I would say hold. And
right.
one of the things I did wrong was not like, I wanted to have as much for myself. So I would have said, bring in a partner with capital, that makes it easier to do the deals. So I'd go back and say, find somebody with capital, work on that. Don't just buy for appreciation like a dumbass. And
well, that's slow. That's the hard part. It can take a lifetime to get wealthy that way.
Yeah, but that's 20 years, and and what else would I tell myself? It's more on the mental health side, if anything, that I've grown, like, read more books, self-help, and just, again, I spent so much time in anxiety, fear, upset when people would say certain things. It's more of getting the mindset right early on. Yeah, I think that would made a big difference.
I like that. I think that's half the game or more. I really do.
It is. It's like I have a therapist who he's a ex attorney and he's also with business, so it works out good because we know how to helps me cope. And some of the things like
Mhm.
it's like I have these mantras each morning. Like I'll say, "What's next?" Control the controllables, and little things that I've added in. March 20 miles every day. There's a story about like make sure no matter what no matter what happens, make sure you keep going that day. Don't let
Press
something
on.
throw you off. And so those mantras has helped a lot. And then about a year and a half ago, I did the ketamine treatment. That was
Oh, really?
changed just because you feel love, peace. So it's like,
Gets a little those treatments, from what I've heard, get a little deeper than, treatments that where you're in your normal state of mind.
yes, because it's a dissociative. But so I think the 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 mindset and going through that more reading of books and being around the right people, things like that would be some of the major changes that I would have done.
That's really I like that you're touching on that as opposed to some of the business advice people bring up.
Yeah.
I think your headspace, your head game, what's going on in your heart,
Yes.
that's not talked about very often about being an entrepreneur or a small business owner or just having to drive the bus, so to speak. And I got a bunch of people in this office, I'm responsible for
Yeah.
them. And as I mature, I'm 43 years old today. I've had similar experiences where you go up and down and you're trying to navigate all that, you're trying to prove that you're good enough. You're trying to reconcile these things with you while you still continue to keep things going. And that's a whole other unspoken piece of this that people almost act like doesn't exist, and it damn sure
It
exists.
does. It's the mindset, learning how to cope with things, right? Support people,
Yeah.
uh, medication in certain
Uh,
circumstances, and reading. Like I have 423 books that
oh
I
my
listen to
gosh.
on Audible. It's there's so many different great books. Everything from The Obstacle is the Way. Um,
I love
and,
the Chris Boss never split the difference, by the
yep,
way.
yep. And then just there's all these books that I've read that have helped reinforce things. So I think that's one piece. It's not just because you're going to deal with difficult stuff, but if you
Yeah.
make it difficult, it's really not. You're just like, what's next?
If you frame it right,
If
just
you
like you're
it's
talking about.
all about framing.
Yeah.
It's all about framing. Like, you know, control the controllables. Okay, like this is 3D chess. What's next? And then I used to get upset a lot, and then I'd blow the whole day off. I'd be like, ah. But it's like
How did you manage to modify that behavior?
that was like reading the different books, and I think this is one of the ones the story about the race to the North Pole. I don't know if you heard this. There's two
Mm-mm.
guys, and this one guy, and I'm gonna butcher this, but he would do 20 miles, snow, sleet, whatever. Other guys would have a good day, then they'd rest for a day and whatever. The guy that made it did that every day. But the moral is like these things come up. Another great thing is I say put it through the process. Something comes up, like I don't tend to catastrophize stuff as much as I used to. Like the sky is falling, we're getting sued, this person's quitting. So I'm like, okay, we'll put it through the process. So it's like, even though I don't have a process, I have a time. I think we just talk it through without emotions. But what happens?
Yeah.
So when things go bad, I'm like, okay, I still have to march 20 miles today. Keep things going.
Mm-hmm.
Keep things going. And so I think this is one of the aspects that people don't talk about as much in this business, that there's this mental game and you have to really work on yourself, surround yourself with the right people. And then, for me, it's the ketamine treatments, and then I take anti-anxiety, those
Help
things that
keep
make
that
different.
edge a little softer.
Yep. And that's what's helped make a big difference for
Man,
me.
that's good advice for business owners and just anybody out there.
Yeah.
You live in a world that it seems scarier than it is.
Yep.
We put expectations around ourselves that might not be fair. We compare ourselves unfairly to others.
Yep.
There's a wacky combination there, but I like that one.
Yeah, that's made a big difference, is just continually to improve and get better. through, again, the therapy, the books, the right people in your life, medications, things like that.
All of it together.
All together has just sort of crystallized in the last year.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
A business as a business develops for me, as a child who didn't feel like he was good enough, divorced parents, poverty problems, all those things. I didn't feel like I was good enough. I didn't feel like I had low self-esteem.
I suffer from that.
Yeah, all
very
these
bad.
things. And for me, when I finally quit doing drugs and alcohol about 2009, it took a while for life to get a lot better. I didn't have like the terrible shit happen all the time, but like life wasn't great by any means. But what really happened is I went in the oil field, started to work, and I started to do good job at work, get better paychecks. People started to respect me. They would say positive things about me. And it just changed who I was and how I felt about myself. So over time, as that happened, self-image improved, trust and confidence in me improved. And then getting into a small business was tough because all of a sudden it started to go like this. The job thing was more linear. And the small business thing was like, good deal, bad deal. I'm doing good. I fucked up. You know how that stuff is. And that was really tough for a couple of years. I just had to really like hold on and just white knuckle it. And then as the business developed, probably 4 or 5 years into it, it really started to stabilize. It had more manpower and more predictability. And then I started to regain, or not regain, but build on all those.
Exactly.
So today, 10 years into this business, 20 people here, the business works really well. It's a good place. The stability, the experience, the personal trust. Yeah, all those play a huge role.
And thing, like, I just try to get 1% better every day, just like a little improvement. It's not like I'm not, and that there's that.
You can do that just with being conscious of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just that, it's all just 1% better every day. Find something to improve on and just slowly, work my way out of this.
Start a business, they say. It'll be fun, they say.
Yeah. But one thing I want to tell people, just that you can do this. That I think a lot of people have self-limiting beliefs. Like, I don't have enough money. I don't know how this works. I don't know what I'm doing. Just get started. Just do it. Learn, and just realize those are self-limiting beliefs. There's a way pretty much around everything, and a way to solve the problem. And take it like that. I want to encourage people that again, it can seem overwhelming, but you can do this, and you don't need to have tons of money, tons of educate, any of that stuff. Just get there and go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
People that are starting to pay attention to the content that we're producing, in this vein, sometimes, oh shit, I just went blank. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Sometimes they look at it like it could be too much. Sometimes they're scared to start. But if you were to share something to people who are either just getting into this business or trying to get into the business, outside of what we've already talked about, what would be like a one piece of really big advice that you would give to folks that are headed this direction?
I think it's good to maybe have a partner or people you can joint venture with all the experience. You don't always worry about what you're making in the beginning. If you
hard, people think about that more than anything.
Yeah,
but shouldn't.
But it should be like, if you could work with you, me, or somebody who knows this stuff, it's going to get you higher to that level faster. But don't be concerned if you're not making. Don't be concerned if you're making anything, as long as you survive. Just reach out to, I'd say, joint ventures. Get a partner who's good at the opposite thing you are.
You can learn you can get paid while someone else that's a little better than you is helping you through it.
Helping you.
You might have to give up half the juice or more, even.
Much more.
But as long as you're getting your bills paid and can get the model, like, it's hard. If someone were to call you and say, "Hey, can I come shadow you?" You're like, no. They have to pay like significant money to get your attention because you're busy and you're making money and it works. But if someone can work with you and earn, I think it's a great option.
Yeah, I think that's what I would say is find somebody that has opposite strength that you do. Be curious, get started, and then try, maybe at least in the beginning, joint venture, and don't be worried. Don't get caught up, is it fair or not? But just like, it's about the knowledge is more. One last little
Good one.
story was I saw this the other day. There was a boat, and the guy hired the specialist to come fix it. And so the guy walks around, pulls some stuff out, and then he starts tapping a couple parts. The boat starts running, sends him a bill for $30,000. And the guy goes, "You charge me $30,000 for an hour's worth of work?" And he says, "It's not the hours worth of work. You're paying for all the time and experience, and you're also paying knowing where to tap." And so I need to send you that video. And
Yeah,
that's when people tell me like, "Oh, you only spent a few hours on it." It's like, I know where to tap.
if I didn't spend 20 years doing all this, I wouldn't have needed 20 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And so
I agree with
that's
that.
the people that's getting started realize that the experts have put in the time, they have the knowledge to get it done. And maybe you get 10% of the deal, but you
Mhm.
get something in the knowledge and how to get it done is more important than in the beginning making a ton of money, in my opinion.
100%.
Yeah.
I've never owned 100% of any of these businesses.
Yeah.
I started out owning 50% of one because I partnered with someone that had more capital and more experience than
Yeah.
me. And then as I grew, other guys started businesses that I would either own half or a quarter of.
Hmm.
So we've been big believers of partners, shared capital, shared resources forever.
Yeah.
So what's next for Karl?
Well, I need to hire some more people. I'm looking for somebody that can come in my company that I'm looking for someone that can run the company. I'm the
Management.
visionary management. And then I'm looking for another sort of like somebody who's had years of title curative stuff all over the country. I need an additional person because I'm doing a lot of that right now.
That's the
And-
high level stuff that not a lot of people know. So that's one of those parts where you probably have a roadblock or bottle. Headgum word.
Bottleneck in my
Yeah, that's where your
business,
bottleneck is. Yeah.
you know, and then I need more joint venture people. So we're looking to joint venture more. So that's what we're getting ready to expand, you know, all through it. We're mainly North Carolina. We expand everywhere. But I need some more good people. That's, and then of
Human
course,
capital.
always need more capital. This business, like it needs capital.
Always needs more.
So, and that's what we're gonna really work. And then and then we're gonna keep expanding in new niches. We're gonna keep learning more stuff. So part of what's next is keep learning new niches that fit within the distressed
See what
stuff.
else is out there. Got it.
Yeah,
Well, this has been fun, man. I've enjoyed this.
it's been great.
You're one of the guys that I also have an equal admiration for because when I started figuring this out, like I said earlier, I was looking for other counterparts and I couldn't find any. I mean, literally, I found like 4 or 5 people that I thought were anywhere close to what we were doing. And I'm like, there's a guy up in North Carolina that's killing it. So I've enjoyed just having that contemporary there along the way. So
Yeah.
thanks for coming. If people want to get a hold of you, Karl, what's the best way?
Well, I'll give out my cell phone. Go ahead and text me. It's 704-995-5385. And then if you forget that, you can call, we have a business line, 704-777-7777.
That's great.
And so,
That's
but
the $100,000 phone number.
yeah, I was offered 110,000 for it. Bought it for $450. And, real quick, when I got into trouble financially, 2008, I was trying to figure out how to survive. I got a $10,000 loan against the phone number. I used that as collateral. I think outside the box.
That's interesting.
I went to one of my
Wow.
friends that had a lot of money and stuff. And I'm like, this is a valuable number. And he loaned me 10 grand against it. So
That's
you
hilarious.
got to just think outside the box, think creatively. You know,
Owner finance Subway shop to a $10,000 collateralized loan against 777-7777. That's great.
So let's see if anything else. I'm just trying to think what else we're looking joint venture, curative title specialist, someone that can help run the company because I suck at management. And you know, and just any other relationships to foster. And I enjoy helping people out on deals, things like that too. So.
Fun. You want to be it sounds to me like you want to be in a spot where people are handling a lot of the day-to-day continuous stuff, and you've got the ability to step in and either work on JVs if you want to, or go deal with some branding stuff or whatever it is you want to do where you feel like you'll be effective, but you are interested.
Yeah, I love the breakthrough sessions.
Yeah.
I love solving the
You
strategy.
can help them piece it all together, and then they go to their office and keep going, and you are done.
Yeah, that's what I do more
These
of.
attention spans with people like you and I is a challenge to manage well.
Yes, I can be a handful being ADD. I'm been calm during this, but being ADD poster child, it's a little challenging.
I get it. All right, my dude. Well, I had a
Cool.
blast. Thanks for coming.
Sure.
Anytime you're in anywhere north of Texas, especially the Carolinas, Karl and Stas run a great operation. I've enjoyed working with them, so they're a great resource. Call them, find them. He's always easy to get a hold of. So,
And sometimes you have to like text me multiple times. I'm trying to get better organized in that stuff. So if I don't respond, just text, yo mofo. I text you, what's up? Okay.
yo, mofo.
Well,
All right, Karl. It's been
thank you.
fun, man. Until next time.
All right.
My commitment to you is to deliver the most interesting, messy, and profitable real estate deals on earth. And in exchange for that, I only ask that you subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend who can benefit.